Hi family, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're well. I hope you're doing great. Oh my goodness, this video has been a long time coming and finally it is here. We thank the Lord that I eventually got around to the scheduling of ESCOM because the only constraint I had was load shedding. So yeah, a couple of people did ask for this video, and I was planning on doing it anyway. So I hope one or two people will get one or two things that will assist them in their attempt this year or in future. And it is also applicable when you're in preparation during your board course or professional program leading towards the exam. So some of the tips that I will share, I'm going to share 10 tips, but some of the tips that I'm going to share will be applicable to repeat students, right? So if you're not a repeat student, certain things might not be applicable to you, but other things will be. So please do not tune out. Please do listen, and please do share this video with someone who is going to write soon or in the next year or so. I believe the tips will still be applicable. It's simple things that can be done 2 weeks before pre-release, I promise you. So I made notes, and the reason I didn't really make notes is because I did share a message with a couple of friends and colleagues during the course of the year in terms of what worked for me. So I just compiled everything, and yeah, I'm gonna share with you guys. I hope you really you enjoy this video and you learn a thing or two. Okay, so this first one is applicable to repeat students. Okay, so the first thing, and if you're a repeat student, it will only be applicable if you bought your script already. So if you haven't and you're writing this December, maybe this will not really be applicable to you. But if you're watching this in 2022 and you're repeating, this will then be applicable to you. Hopefully you bought your script. Okay, I always advise buy that script and go through it. So the first thing I did was go through my script thoroughly. So I took 2 days of just going through my first attempt. So the reason for doing this is you want to know where you went wrong. It's not necessarily to feel like, oh, I should have been a C here. In fact, here I'm a BC, not an LC. No. It's just basically for me the most important thing, because I sat down with my script and I forgot what they call it, but the solution basically. But then with the solution, for APC, it's basically different, like people's responses for the different scenarios. Okay, so I sat down and I was like, okay, this is someone who is an HC's response. This is someone who's a C. And Mina, for this task, I was at a BC. So I wanted to know what was the difference in terms of the answering technique between me and someone who is a C or an HC, and try figure out what would then be the thought process, and probably what would have been in their file or in like the preparation stages that would have informed them to answer or attempt the task a certain way. So that's the first thing I did. So if you're not a repeat candidate, obviously this will not necessarily be applicable to you. So number two, the second thing I did was, throughout the year you are part of a professional program. Maybe at times you did well, sometimes not so well, but then I also wanted to understand what went wrong. So is it a technical issue? Is it my tone? Is it my communication? So like those type of things, I wanted to find out, like, what can I do better? And then in my case, most often than not, you find that I focus more on the technical and forget the other communication things and so forth. So it was very important to know exactly what was going wrong during the year, so that you don't repeat it when you're actually attempting the actual exam. So that was number two. Okay, and then Number three is know your weakness, right? um so mine in particular was, i I struggled a lot with your risk and strategy, and I know that's the easy part. But then remember, if I'm not exposed to a certain industry, it will be hard for me to know what is actually happening in that industry. Say for example, you're given an aviation industry. I think as far as I can get with aviation is basically booking a flight and boarding one, and that's it. So what I would then do is watch a lot of YouTube videos. I'm someone who remembers more by seeing than reading. I know when you're reading you see the words, but I mean, like, for example, if you are doing a manufacturing company, I want to see the conveyor belt and so forth, instead of just reading about it. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos during my breaks. Let's say, for instance, it's the 5 days, yeah, pre-release. So during my study breaks, or when I'm preparing lunch, I'll just play a YouTube video that will explain that industry. It doesn't necessarily have to be specific to South Africa, because most of the industries you find that they are very prevalent in other parts of the world. So I'll still watch what's going on in other parts of the world in terms of that particular industry, because then it broadens your view when it comes to that industry, and it helps with understanding the industry in a broader sense, if makes sense. All right, so that's the one thing I did. And like watching those videos, you'll now start even identifying gaps. Even in the scenario you are given, you'll be able to say, oh, this is probably a risk, because you have a better understanding of the industry. So that's what I will say. And it also helps with your industry research as well, in terms of watching these videos. And I mean, go online. Yes, you can still go online and get articles from audit firms. Normally audit firms will do like a risk assessment of an industry, and they will have reports on their website and so forth. Those are also very helpful. So these are things that during the 5 days pre-release, I will do it, not part of like my daily schedule per se. Excuse me, but then let's say for instance I'm about to go to bed, I'll watch like a young 30 minutes video, or just as I'm having lunch, watch something in relation to the industry. So yeah, basically that is my third tip. And then my fourth tip is askest. ask ask, okay? Ask as many questions as you can during your group discussions, during your peer discussions, whatever your setup is. Make sure you ask a lot of questions. Don't leave anything unanswered, right? If you have a query, if there's something you're not understanding, make sure you ask your group members, your colleagues, your fellow colleagues, your, like, basically people within your space that you're allowed to communicate with. Remember, there are rules when it comes to that. You can't be like, you can't send me an email and saying shalala, what are your thoughts on this, right? But then your group members, you have friends that are probably also attempting, maybe are in other firms or other companies. So ask as much as you can and get a different perspective, because you might have asked yourself the question and tried to respond to it, but your response might not be as extensive as if you would have inquired with another person. And I would also encourage joining like these big groups like your Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups and so forth. But I would say mute that group and go in as and when, because sometimes it can be information overload and overwhelming. So make sure that you do create some sort of boundary when it comes to that. Don't just be receiving everything as it comes, create some sort of boundary, but then again, ask a lot of questions. And this also is applicable to when you are still in preparation for the actual exam and you're still busy with your professional program, if for some reason you don't understand why you got a BC instead of a C, inquire to say what is the gap, like based on your assessment as a marker. I see your comments, but for me it's still not clear. Yeah, ask during that phase. But then now, as I filmed that video, this video, you are no longer at that phase. Now you're in the preparation phase of the actual exam, so you can't even inquire with your lecturers that assisted you during the professional program. So ask as much as you can, like I said. And I know we are part of groups, but do not place full reliance on a group. The reason why I'm saying this is I know some people, we divide and conquer when it comes to our group. We say, when I do trigger 1, when I do trigger 5, and whatnot. But then remember, our weaknesses or things that we don't understand are not the same. So you might find that you give me trigger 2 and I do a summary because I understand that topic so much, and it won't really be helpful to someone else who doesn't really understand that particular maybe topic and so forth. So I would say do your own work and then use the group to your advantage, right? Because at the end of the day, in as much as you guys, you've been through the professional program together, you are like family now and whatnot. This thing is about you, bruh. Like, this thing is about you. Remember, you are the one who's going to attempt the exam, and it's you alone. It's that exam number. If you are number 55, that was my exam number. If you're number 55, that's that. Was I 55 or 53? I don't remember. I was 50 something. But that's that. There won't be friend X and friend Z and group member Y. No, those people will not be there. So make sure that even when you are planning during the pre-release period, if you're planning group meetings, make sure it makes sense. You can't be meeting every day. I think at most you should have like 3 meetings at most, right? And even when you structure your meetings, it shouldn't be the day before you write your meeting. It should be the day of the pre-release, maybe to discuss triggers later on, and then sometime during the week just to make sure that you are clear on topics and so forth. But yeah, so that's what I will say in terms of a group. Use it to your advantage, and don't just rely on a group, right? So I had a group, but I still had friends that were doing APC. So there are times where I would call my friend and go, hey, when I at your group, Vele, what are you discussing when it comes to this matter? And I can tell you right now, there is something that my group and I, we overlooked. We didn't really think it was a thing. We overlooked it. And then a friend of mine called me and was like, okay, when it comes to it, had to do with the remuneration of audit com members, right? To say, are they independent contractors or something like that, but it had to do with tax. My group and I, as far as I can remember, we didn't really discuss it. But then my friend and I went back and forth debating it, and we got material. And mind you, when we're going back and forth, it was the day before, like the morning, the morning of, the day before. So come the next day when we are attempting our exam, they actually asked that question, and I kid you not, I didn't have the information in my file, but I was able to to write paragraphs upon paragraphs based on the debate my friend and I had, because I had knowledge of that topic. So that's the reason why you should know your file. Okay, London is all good, but know the file. Know your file, right? And know the information that's on your file. Because if you know your work, you won't even open your file. Or if you do open your file, it will be once or twice just to make sure you have some jargon correct or something like that. But if you know your work and you know what's in there, I tell you, it will be maybe for 1 or 2 tasks where you will really rely on the file. But other than that, you'll just be flowing, you know. So yeah, that's the tip I have when it comes to that. I even lost count on the number I'm at. I'm sorry, I'm new at this like numbering situation when it comes to giving tips, but yes, that's important. Okay, then the next one is okay, this we got from, for people who did APT, you'll know who I'm talking about, Prof Ben. I got this tip from Prof Ben, and it's something that if you're doing APT, they will highly recommend, is that read your pre-release information every day. Okay. Okay, so basically APT strategy, I don't know if it changed. For us, they would say when you get the pre-release, read it, right? Take your time, read it, don't highlight. Read to understand. Nje, ne? Read it. Take nyana a break for 20 minutes or 10 minutes. I read it again. And then the third time around, when you read it, now be highlighting and like um highlighting the triggers and identifying the triggers and so forth. So yeah, do that. And every day, Mina, when I woke up, I would read the pre-release information. The reason why I would do this is not to claim the scenario, but you might find that there's a trigger you might have missed. There's something new that you will discover each day, man. Like there's something you might have overlooked the first time around, and so forth. So, and you will be able to know what is happening in the scenario to a point where now, if you are reading an article online and it's applicable to a certain trigger, you can link it straight away, you know. So, yeah, I would say read the scenario every day. Okay. Um, and then the next tip. Sorry, I need to go back to the points. I didn't memorize all of them. Okay. Um. Okay. So this is the most important one. Okay. This is the most important tip, right? I think out of all 10, is time management. Not just in your exam, but in preparation of your exam. You know, most often than not, you will find yourself stuck on one trigger, um, in terms of research now, maybe for, or preparing for your file, maybe for the whole day, right? So if you don't manage your time, you'll find yourself wanting by the time you go, right? Because remember, you only have 5 days to prepare. So what I would then do is, after the pre-release day, where I've identified the triggers and maybe confirmed with my group, I would then strategize. Say, for instance, I have 8 triggers, then I would divide them within 2 or 3 days or 2.5 days, and then schedule time for each one. I mean, if you have a text trigger, for me, text is a strength. I'm not gonna spend 3 hours right on that trigger. Chances are maybe I just need an hour or an hour and a half. And then maybe for MENEC or FBS or financial management or management accounting question or trigger, you would need more time. Well, in my case, I would need more time if it's a finance, but a costing one, not really. So it depends. So it depends on your needs, right? But allocate time. So what I would do is, if I allocated 2 hours for a text trigger, the moment 2 hours lapses, I leave it, I pocket, I move on to the next one. So at the end of the day, if my cutoff time in terms of research and whatnot is 8 p.m., then I'll like go back to that trigger that I hadn't finished. Like, let's say I go to bed maybe at 10, I'll go back to that trigger and try find out where I went wrong, what I need to update, what I need to add, and so forth, or carry it over to the next day. Should I finish early the next day, I will then go back to it. This is to assist with time management, because you'll find that because I'm so hung up on that trigger, I'll spend the entire day working on it. So what I would advise is schedule time, like give each trigger a time allocation. If you're not done, move on, right? But what I would say is also very, very, very important is do your own work. Okay, do your own work, and that way you know what is happening. If you just rely, like I said, if you rely on a group member to do the work, or you rely on London, you'll find yourself wanting, you know, because if you do the work, you're even able to ask the whys and the what ifs. What if they ask it like this? If you can manipulate it to be a um um a text question instead of an accounting trigger, how would you answer it? Because no one knows what will come on exam day. Okay, you don't know. It might have been an IFRS 15 question, or trigger rather, and you find that on the day of the exam they actually ask a text question or a MENA question, or so it's very important that you understand what is happening, in terms of the file. So last but not least, London. Let's discuss London. Okay, the London pack. Disclaimer: it is up to you whether you want to use London or not. It's your decision, right? We don't judge here. We don't do such things. We don't judge. However, I will say, should you choose to use London, make sure you know what you're putting in your file. Make sure you have done the groundwork. You're not just waiting for someone's work, because it's so hard to articulate someone's thoughts, because that's what a file is. It's basically a documentation of your thought process, so I would say shy away from London if you can. But there are a few things. Maybe you want to, like, financial statement analysis, your risk assessment when it comes to maybe pastel and all those, and SWOT analysis. Maybe you can look at London, but then don't just take the information from London. Assess it, decipher what's happening, and then take what you think is important, right? So that's my advice. But I think as a repeat student, I will say this: I highly recommend it. Do your own work, and trust me, when you've done your own work, and like 80% of the work that you've done is your own thoughts. You've Even if you got the information from a group member, let's say for example, maybe when you were preparing for a text trigger, you went south and I came in there and I'm like, okay, no, but we were supposed to go north, and I shed some light, maybe I share my information with you. Make sure you take it and you make it your own. Okay, the way I write, maybe I write shorthand, you don't, like, you won't really understand, and you trying to figure it out in the exam, you're gonna waste time. So know your file, right? And then I think, let me just go back to my 10 tips. I think I've discussed everything. um oh, there's just one thing which I'll discuss now that I didn't discuss. Okay, so what I would do in the 5 days of the pre-release, thank God it was during lockdown, or rather at the time when my husband was working, they were doing rotations, right? So what, the week I was preparing, he was at home. So what we would do is we'd take walks, like maybe around 5 p.m. Would take walks, and then during the walk I'll just be like talking out loud about, maybe say, a standard like IFRS 3, explaining what IFRS 3 pertains, what I think about IFRS 3, or whatever the case may be. Mugai didn't even understand what I was talking about, but anyway, he was there to support it and agreeing to the nonsense I was telling him. So anyway, the objective of saying this and the taking of walks is, I'm not saying try go to the gym, now and build muscle, and be a bodybuilder. No. But try, maybe take a short walk, even if it's 10 minutes, where you process what you've been doing the whole day. So during your walk, try summarize the things you were doing, like, oh, okay, today I looked at IS2 because it was a trigger, and then I also looked at section 19 cap A for tags, or whatever the case may be. In that way, you'll be able to know, oh, okay, you'll even pick up things like gaps in the work that you've done. So I would suggest that take time off books. So even if it's just taking 30 minutes to watch Big Bang, if if anything, my family would tell you, if there's someone who's making money for a Big Bang, it's me. Like, I don't know how many times I've watched the reruns of Big Bang. It makes me feel calm, it makes me feel good. I laugh, I love laughing, I feel relaxed. So I'll just watch like a young episode of Big Bang. But it's very important that you're also disciplined. Don't start a new series. Something light, you know like maybe an episode of People Who Watch Friends. I was never a fan, but if like a young episode of Friends, but try take your mind off books, like even if it's washing dishes, doing your laundry, or cleaning your kitchen, but nothing too extreme, but taking your mind off it but still processing what you've been doing, if it makes sense. Or take your mind off it, and then after you want to go back, just take 10-15 minutes to reflect on what you've done. That will really assist. So yes, family, those were my 10 tips. I know along the way I lost count, but those are my tips when it comes to attempting your APC. I hope this video assists you. I hope you got one or two things that will be able to assist you, and all the best to all our colleagues that will be attempting their APC this December and in future. All the best. And I hope everything goes according to plan. Remember, even though they release statistics, be on the other end of the statistics, please. And I do want to say, should it happen you don't make it, it's not the end of the world. I know it's so cliche, everyone says this. I'm one of the people who didn't make it the first time around. I'm here, I'm alive, I'm doing good, and I'm okay. So it's very important that you take a step back and reflect on your journey. For you to get this far, it took a lot of sacrifice, it took tears sometimes. So this last exam does not define the person that you are. I know we need this last board exam to get that designation, but don't let it take away from life itself. Okay, so it's very important that you understand that eventually you'll make it. When we get that certificate, like I always say, they don't write Ntalala Mabunda CASA, it took her 7 years or it took her 10 years. It's the same certificate, right? So it's very important that you're kind to yourself and prepare yourself for the exam day. Make sure that you have enough snacks. Make sure that you are comfortable. If you need to take a pillow with you to the exam room, make sure that you take that pillow. But prepare yourself. Pray if you believe in praying. But yeah, all the best. I wish you nothing but the best. More than anything, I really want you guys to make it. And I will, I think, at some point next year as well, refilm these videos, like more, like, how do I say it, like refilm it to be more diverse, or catering to a diverse spectrum of people. But now I just really genuinely wanted to film this video to usher our colleagues that are attempting this December all the best. I know I'm rambling now, but all the best. I pray God be with you on the day. Calm down, breathe, take your time. If you're stuck, take a break, go to the bathroom, come back, and give it your best. All the best. I know you can do it. You are capable. For you to get this far, you are capable. All the best. With that being said, family, may love, peace, and grace be unto you. Bye.